Hi, I'm Eleanor Meyerhofer, a native Californian, designer, and digital strategist. In October of 1999, a few years after graduating from design school, I flew from San Francisco to Munich with a fistful of Deutschmarks, a dial-up connection, and an extremely vague plan. 20 plus years later, after a 10-year stint at a global agency, freelancing, and launching 2 online businesses, I'm still here. Now I'm talking to other expat business owners to share knowledge, stories, and inspiration for other non-Germans running businesses in Germany. I am here today with Emily Claire Hughes, who is calling in from Hamburg. And I actually want to talk to you about what you do because I'm not quite sure how to introduce your business exactly. But I'm just going to kick it off with the question that I ask everybody, which is, can you give me, and I know in your case, because we've talked a little bit before, it's going to be hard, but the 2-minute story of how you ended up in Germany and where you're
Wow.
from.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Okay. Can I start with where I'm from? I'm from the US,
Sure.
East
Sure.
Coast, born in Atlanta, Georgia, grew up in Maryland, moved to New York when I was 18 to study, and lived in New York City for like 7 years. Story of how I got to Germany. I think I can actually do it pretty quickly, to be honest. I've gotten very good at this over
Okay.
the years. I
Okay.
used to be a professional performer, used to be a singer, actor, dancer. This is what I went to university for, like trying to be on Broadway, the whole 9 yards. I was doing this professionally. This was my job. And then I knew I needed a change and I wanted to take a break from New York. I either wanted to like go on tour or travel or just get out of New York City. I wound up booking a job for this really random German cruise line that I had never heard of. And my agents looked at the contract and they were like, this looks legit. We've never heard of the company before, but like the contract looks nice. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Germany. So I came to Germany. I lived in Hamburg for 2 months while I like learned a ton of different like musical shows and then got on this giant floating cruise ship. It's basically like the carnival of Germany and traveled the world working as a cruise ship singer actually for a couple of years. And then like from the moment I came to Hamburg, I was hooked. I remember like the first time I was here, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I don't know. There's something about this city. I just love it. I think it's beautiful. I think I'm going to live here one day. Fast forward 3 years later, many stops in between, tried to live in Portugal for a year and a half. That didn't work. Like, I basically just knew that I had to find a way to get back to Hamburg. And so I did.
Wow.
And that's how I'm here.
Wow. That is amazing. And what in particular, like, did you, I mean, I've been to Hamburg and it is a great city, but what grabbed you so much about it?
To be fair, I really wonder now how much of it was actually Hamburg and how much of it was just European life in general.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think like the contrast for me coming from New York City, like living in Manhattan was insane. Like from the moment you get to Germany, you just feel that like the work life balance is different. People take
Mhm.
vacation very seriously. People take their working
Mhm.
hours incredibly seriously. I mean, in the startup world, it's slightly different, but it was just everything here was more balanced. It was also more beautiful. Like the city is
Mhm.
beautiful. The subways are
Mhm.
so clean. Oh
I
my
know.
God. If you compare any form of public transportation in Germany to like the New York City subway system, it's insane the difference. So I think it was just so many factors. And then on top of that, Hamburg does have beautiful like water, which I think for me is
Yeah.
really a thing. I either need like water or views because I think for me it's
Mhm.
like a really nice perspective shift when you're near water or like have a beautiful view of something. And Hamburg has a harbor, it has like so many different canals going through the city with all these beautiful bridges and stuff. So for me it was just I don't think there was any one thing. And I
Okay.
really wonder now how much of it was Hamburg specific or how much of it was just like life in Europe in general.
Europe.
But I
Yeah.
just like I felt like I got here and it was like what I had been looking for. Like I was like, "Oh, this sounds awesome. This is lovely. Like people here have health insurance. This is great." And yeah, then I decided that this is what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. That the, the part about the U-Bahn when I had been here a couple of years, but when I was kind of deciding if I was going to stay or go back, I'd been working in London for a few months. And London is a great city. I love London, but it was a really hot summer. And I remember coming back to Munich and like, this clean U-Bahn is kind of nice. And it's nice riding my bike.
Oh,
And
that's
that was
also
what,
another thing.
yeah,
The bike. That's also totally
yeah,
another thing. I take my bike everywhere. It's I think it's really, really hard to compare like these German cities to most other cities that probably
yeah.
you or I have lived in. I totally agree. Also, like New York. London, like the trains are smelly. There are a lot of like
Yeah.
questionable people around all the time.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
in Germany, for some reason, it's a totally different feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I could have a podcast on that
Maybe
just
this is your
alone,
next
but
podcast.
we are here to talk about business. So why don't you tell me and the listeners what you do and what your business is?
Yeah. So it's twofold. My business is 50% influencer marketing for startups and 50% copywriting for female focused startups or female focused companies with like a startup mentality. So basically, I do marketing copywriting and I also do influencer marketing. And right now, my clients are about 50-50 split, and I'm super happy with that.
Okay, that's why I asked you because I also noticed you have this influencer. It's an influencer marketing boot camp like on Udemy,
Yes, I
correct?
launched an online course, which I have to
Okay.
say, we could talk about this later if you want, or we can talk about it now. But for me, it has been
We
like,
can talk about it now.
okay, has been like the coolest thing. Like I have to say, I'm really glad I did it. I literally only did it because when I started my business, I became self-employed. I wanted to like basically become like the people I was following on LinkedIn. And I was like, I
Mhm.
need multiple streams of income. I need lead generation. I need
Yeah,
all these
yeah.
things that everyone talks about on the internet. And I was like, okay, how? And so then I did a
Mhm.
workshop actually for one startup. I did an influencer marketing workshop. It was like a whole 1 day affair. Put a ridiculous amount of time into like this Canva presentation. And then when I was done, it was actually one of like my mentors who was like, hey, you have a lot of really great content in here. You could turn this into a course. And it like for me, it was like this like light bulb moment where I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I could turn this into a course. So I did. It took a lot of time and effort and money. I turned it into an online course. And I have to say, it has been so wonderfully surprising in so many ways because it's now led to a lot of new clients, which I really wasn't expecting, a lot of new opportunities, a lot of new messages from people on LinkedIn who want to talk about opportunities or working together or this or that. Or I was contacted by like another kind of like new age university in London that wanted to collaborate on another course as well. So, and it's only, keep in mind, it's only been launched for like 2 months. So for me, it's been awesome.
Yeah, let's actually just dig right into this
Yeah.
because I have to tell you, I am like I'm sure you know you kind of go through different phases in business, but right now I'm really anti-course and
Why?
really because I have I'm not anti-course in the sense that I think it's bad. I just have come to understand it's a different business model because I have done a couple of courses. One I just made really to give to my clients about SEO because
Okay.
it's like I couldn't explain anymore. And I was like, I'm not going to try and sell this. But a couple, if you're doing like digital design and digital services, like one way to get quote unquote passive income is to make templates. But it's really a course. Like a
Okay.
template, building a template is easy. And it's just like all the work is building the audience to get enough purchases. So it's the work that's what it felt like to me. The work is all marketing. And then I realized at the end like it's just easier to work one-on-one. I'm just that is a legitimate course of action. It's just I realized like it's not the one I want. I don't want to be like blah blah blahing about my course or what template all the time.
Okay.
So tell me.
But here is the difference, Eleanor. You and I
Yeah.
chose very different strategies for this course because the exactly what you're saying is exactly what I didn't want to do. I have posted about my online course a total of like 2 times on LinkedIn, like since its launch. Like I really haven't stressed it that much. When I send email newsletters, I kind of like mention it when I can, but I am not like buy my course, buy my course, buy my course because I put it on a platform like Udemy where I
Right.
knew that like people could just find it without me having to do anything. That being said, here is the caveat. This is a very big difference and something that I think is very important to clarify. When you put something on Udemy, if people don't find it through my link, if they find it organically on Udemy, I do not make that much money from people coming organically through Udemy. So I actually weighed the pros and cons when I decided I wanted to create an online course. I was like, okay, if I use something like Kajabi and I want to do like my
Mhm.
own course on hosting it on my own, doing everything on my own and marketing it to my own audience, I mean, by the time, like at the time that I came up with this course idea, I had only had my own business for like 9 months. My audience wasn't big enough that I knew I
Right.
had enough people to sell it to. So my thought was, okay, let's take the risk, put it on a site like Udemy, where my revenue on Udemy, for instance, for the course might not be that big, but I've already made back thousands in new client contracts that for me, it's
Aha.
like that was the way that I could justify. Like, it's very interesting to me to when people always ask, oh, like, how successful is your course? I'm like, well, what what do you want to
Is a
talk about as
success.
the gauge of
Yeah.
success? Because
Right.
if it's me seeing a positive ROI on Udemy itself, yeah, it's going to take probably at least a year for that to happen. But I mean, I've barely marketed it at all. I have put $0 into marketing it. And I already have, I think, like as of this weekend, 58 students, and maybe 3 of them I tried to like are from my own audience that I marketed to
Hmm.
myself. And the
Hmm.
other 55 are, coming in organically through something like Udemy. So I chose a very different course of action because exactly like what you were saying is what I didn't want to spend the time doing. If and when I decide to make a second course, I would wait until my audience is big enough and then I would
Hmm.
do what you were talking about.
Okay. So we're actually kind of aligned. So that
100%.
is a great point because it was more marketing basically for you. You weren't like, I'm going to make 10,000 euros a month on my Udemy course. Like it was getting your name out there, demonstrating your expertise and putting it. Okay. Then that makes
Or
total sense.
the other thing I wanted to add too is also like establishing my authority as a voice in
Mhm.
startup influencer marketing. So for instance,
Right.
what I have found to be really effective is when someone reaches out and wants to work with me with like on influencer marketing for their startup, a lot of times they'll just kind of start asking questions like, "Hey, is this something you could help us with?" And I'm like, "Of course I could help you. I did a whole course about how I could help you. Check out my
Mhm.
course." Like if you want to take it for free or whatever. But what I find is most of the times people don't want to take it. They just want me to like step in and solve their problems. But they are now convinced that I know what I'm talking about because I've made a whole course about it. So for me, that has been like really, really, I would say a smart move that I'm quite proud of myself for just biting the bullet and doing it because I literally had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
But it worked.
Yeah. So a good authority builder, in other
Yes.
words. Okay. So Udemy, just out of curiosity, I remember you posting something that was about that platform. Why? I mean, aren't there other ones? I'm totally not familiar with all of the. I mean, I had a course a million years ago on Skillshare. I don't know if it's even still there.
Skillshare is another big one. I was actually looking at Skillshare as well. And I think oh god. I should say this with like a disclaimer and like asterisk and like terms and conditions apply underneath or something. But I'm pretty sure if you put your course on Udemy, I think you can also put it on Skillshare or something like that as well. I think you might be able to put it on multiple platforms. Honestly, like I this is a random fact. I used to work in online education. Like when I first started working with influencers, I was
Mhm.
working with YouTube influencers to create online courses for
Mhm.
this like online education company. So I was aware of
Mhm.
like our competitors in the space. And I just remember thinking Udemy was cool. Udemy was super popular. Like everyone I knew in the US knew Udemy. So for me, it was like Udemy just seemed like a natural fit. And I collaborated on the project with my now fiance. He was like the project manager because I knew I couldn't do it alone.
Mhm.
And he actually did the comparison of all the different platforms and seeing, what else was out
Okay.
there. And I really can't remember exactly the pros and cons of why we chose Udemy. I know that yes, it's cool if someone uses my link, I get almost all of the sales from that course. But I mean, there's lots of drawbacks to Udemy as well. And this is funny. I had a woman come up to me at WeWork who was like, Emily, I heard that you're going to put your course on Udemy. Please don't do it. Like, please, I'm telling you, just please don't put your course on Udemy. And I was like,
Yeah.
I appreciate your concern. Like,
Oh.
thank you very much. I'm aware I'm not going to make that much money on Udemy itself. Like, and truly, honestly, now I'd be super thrilled to see this woman again and be like, hey, Udemy is actually working out really well for me. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's pros and cons to it for sure, but I am quite happy with the choice.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So you got this course out there, and are your is your clientele everywhere, or are you focusing on Germany or Europe?
So this is a funny one. At the moment, I
Yeah.
would say most of my clients are in Germany, almost all of them. But that being said,
Mhm.
they are a pretty international crowd. So I do work with a lot of like expat founders or female founders who might not be German but have a company in German because realistically speaking, I also don't work in German. Like I only work in
Right.
English.
Right.
So I have a
Yeah.
new client actually who is based in Turkey, which for me was a new one,
Mhm.
which is also quite
Mhm.
exciting. But
Mhm.
for the most part, my clients are in Europe. That being said, like looking towards the next couple of years, my plan for my business is to expand to more US clients as well. Because I mean, I think it's just smart. Like right now, I think I've
Mhm.
got a pretty good hold on, the startup female founder market in Germany. But that being said, I have to kind of like rule out potential clients based on what language they're operating in. Where then if I look at
Mhm.
the US, A of all, it's a bigger country. B of all, everyone speaks English. So it's like
Mhm.
I just make my own life so much easier. But that's next steps. But for now, everyone's basically in Germany.
Okay. And before we get off this topic, I do want to ask, wh- how do you define influencer marketing?
Ooh, what do you mean?
Well, when I hear influencer marketing, I think that means find somebody with a jillion followers on Instagram and then like say, I love this handbag. Like that's what I think of. And I know there's got to be
Eleanor,
more to it than that.
I think you need to take my course. No,
I
I'm just kidding.
clearly I do. Clearly I do.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I I mean, honestly, you have defined influencer marketing in a very stereotypical way, but the basis
Mhm.
of it is not off. The entire concept of
Mhm.
influencer marketing is collaborating with people who have an audience that is similar to what you need for your company,
Mhm.
business, product, service, whatever, and leveraging the power of their voice and their reach and their audience to bring whatever your goal is to your site. So I think for me, the most important thing with influencer marketing is establishing a very clear goal, because for a lot of companies, especially startups, they're going to say their goal is sales. A goal of sales for a startup that doesn't have that much budget to work with influencers is kind of unrealistic. But what you can do, for instance, is focus on increasing your brand awareness. So you're a new company that no one has ever heard of. Okay, if you work with enough influencers of a certain size, people are going to start to hear about your company. They're going to know you. You're not going to be this foreign unknown thing anymore. So for me, it's it's accomplishing a specific goal by leveraging the reach of strategic influencers. And influencers can be anyone with a couple thousand followers all the way up to a couple million followers.
But so this is it right to say that this is different from PR and that you are working with individuals and their owned platforms versus like Fast Company or
I
big
think it's
media
totally
outlets?
different than PR. Like, to me,
Okay.
influencer marketing and PR share many things in common, but like, I would never in a million years say that I am a PR consultant for startups. No, I do
Mhm.
influencer marketing, and I have a lot of respect for PR people who really, I think, then work with like the publications and media
Yeah.
outlets, which is a
Yeah.
bit, it's like a totally different thing, because then you're also dealing with different pricing calculations, different media kits. It's a different ballgame.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's also interesting because I wouldn't have, and again, haven't taken your course, I wouldn't know this, but when I think of startups, I'm thinking of tech companies, which is maybe also wrong. I'm starting to reevaluate what I think of when I think of startups, but I always just think it's like some
You
app,
just,
some
you
tech
think of
company.
tech companies?
When I think, I mean, that is I kind of came out of
Yeah.
digital and tech, so to me startup always means, I mean, I also feel like everything just right now I hear people put tech on the end of things like ed tech, wellness tech. Like we were just adding tech and I feel like that's cuz it's you tell me, what is a startup?
Okay, so
How do you
first, to your
define it?
point about adding tech onto everything, I have seen this as well, because I also saw with a bunch. This is a fun fact with copywriting. I also
Mhm.
help startups do pitch decks, and I've seen this with a
Okay.
lot of pitch decks. Is I was receiving the feedback from a lot of founders that at the moment investors are really into tech. They're really into
Mhm.
data. They're really into like all these things. So many startups were like, even if they had a product, they were like, but look at the data behind the product. Look at the
Okay.
tech capabilities of our online shop. Like, it suddenly, everything
Yeah.
became about tech and data. So that, I think, you are
Yeah.
totally accurate in seeing. But I also think, to me, a startup is different only because of the startups that I work with. So for instance, like, I mainly work for B2C lifestyle startups or something like that. Like, some of my clients are like a period tracking app, or a restaurant
Okay.
booking platform, or slow fashion startup, things like that. So I would say I kind of work with like the opposite of tech startups.
Okay. 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 Of course, there's a digital component, but that doesn't mean it's technology. Okay.
Exactly. I would say for most of
Um,
most of my startups are not heavily focused on technology, which is great because I don't understand a
mhm.
lot of it.
Okay. Okay. So do you just like have to kind of have a running database of all these different influencers when like, a new sustainable fashion retailer comes to you or online retailer? You say, "Oh, I know who's gotta profile you," or "I know who we need to get to wear your t-shirt," and you just kinda keep your eyes on all these people or have some tool that shows you who's an influencer on what platforms in these markets?
This is an
I mean
excellent question, because actually at the moment I'm trying to look into these databases. But I have to say, this is where I think I have been very smart with positioning myself, because most startups do not have giant budgets when it comes to influencer marketing. There are massive databases out there with influencers, really easy to search through and find exactly who you need.
Mm-hmm.
They cost like thousands, like per month. Like
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
platforms are so expensive that startups who are just trying to see if they have, you know, a success with one or two influencers, they literally can't afford this. So I
Mm-hmm.
basically kind of bridge the gap between no influencer marketing and ridiculously expensive influencer marketing. And
Okay.
yes, I do have like my own running database of influencers. That being said, as I am starting to see a lot more interest with influencer marketing clients, I'm looking at myself and getting one of these databases. Like I have connections like with a few people at these
Mm-hmm.
companies, and I'm trying to see if that's something that's possible, because right now it's just a lot of time. Like it's time
Yeah.
for me and my team. This is actually why I had to hire people to help me, because it's a lot of time spent on Instagram. For the most part, yes, I have a pretty good handle on like specific niches on Instagram and influencers in those niches. But for instance, like a couple months ago, I had a first for me was a men's skincare startup. And to be honest, I've mainly worked with female focused
Mm-hmm.
companies. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, diving into the world of male influencers was totally new. But I will say, like, the method for finding influencers for me is the same. It doesn't matter what niche they're in, you know, what gender they are. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's just time consuming, which is why these platforms make
Yeah.
so much money. So I do have my own database of influencers, which is constantly evolving as I work with different clients. But then as I work with specific clients, I actually create a database for them as well. So they have like their own database of, and when I say database, it's like literally a Google sheet, but still like like
It
something with
counts.
all this information, you know what I mean, of on
Yeah.
brand influencers for them to work with.
And platforms. So, okay, obviously there's Instagram, but do you also look at people on YouTube, TikTok, and like I follow Nathan Barry, ConvertKit,
Ah,
him.
yeah.
So if they haven't already, they're rolling out, paid newsletters and like something where I'm not on ConvertKit, but where it's kind of like you can kind of like an influencer model of networked newsletter people and then there's Substack. There's like
That's
everything now. So
cool.
like, do you focus on just kind of the traditional social
Traditional.
media? Yeah. Or like, what are the platforms you
Yes, I
look
would
through the
say
most?
I am an influencer marketing dinosaur and I only work
Yeah.
with Instagram. No, for the most
Okay.
part, I
Okay.
work with Instagram, a little bit of YouTube, but for the most part, I totally work with Instagram influencers. If I had a client who was like, listen, I think TikTok is a great channel for us, or if I thought that TikTok would be a great channel for them,
Uh-huh.
I think I would be super open to also working with TikTok influencers. But I think then I would probably hire someone who's a TikTok expert, you know, with influencers, because I think for me, I really pride myself on only working on things that I know I'm very good at. And I know I'm very good
Okay.
at Instagram influencer marketing. In terms of like
Okay.
newsletter things and stuff like that, that's like normally the clients I'm working with, it's more building their social media presence, building their social media
Okay.
community. It's not, hey, we need to be in this newsletter or something like that. Or if it is, it's more PR and then they would, you know, talk to
Okay.
someone else about that.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So that's one half of what you do.
Sorry, I made your
And
job twice as complicated
no,
today.
no, I love it. I'm here for it. And then I might go back to that because I have more questions.
Okay.
Oh, well, no, I'll ask the other question. So how do you typically get clients for that business?
This is an excellent question because this has changed 180 degrees since I first started. And I guess
Mhm.
this is the tale of many people who are lucky enough to start building successful businesses. In the beginning, I was reaching out to clients that were basically in the niche where I wanted to work. I had experience with fashion rental, which is a pretty small industry in Germany, and I knew a bunch of like startups that were in that space. So I
Mhm.
reached out to all of them just to see like, hey, do you have any interest in working together, or I would just love to chat with you and see like what is your strategy right now. Do you want to just have a call? And this was actually the best thing I did, because then almost all of them turned into clients, which was really cool.
Mhm.
I super random, I run with a really nice group of friends, and one of the girls I run with, her soon to be husband is the founder of a really successful handbag brand in Germany. And when he found out that I was starting my business, he said, hey, like, we need help with influencer marketing. Can you help us? So I said, yeah, sure. So then, you know, we had lunch, and then the rest is history. That being said, now I find most of my new clients coming in through word of mouth, referrals,
Mhm.
people in my own LinkedIn community, like connections of connections on LinkedIn, or honestly through my online course. I would say for me,
Mhm.
the coolest evolution has been, if I look back, like I think I officially started my business like 14 months ago. And in the beginning, I was actively trying to find clients to build my business.
Yeah.
And now I feel really lucky to be in a position where like I haven't done that in a very long time because they just
Yeah.
keep finding me, which I say with like the utmost gratitude because wow, I really enjoyed not spending hours trolling LinkedIn for clients.
Yeah. 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 And your model with those kinds of is it like kind of a ongoing retainer, or is it like we're gonna like how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question because this is something brand new that I just launched. And this is what I just did my last newsletter about it. I launched this kind of offer because this is what I was trying to figure out. I found that as more startups were coming to me for influencer marketing, I had to kind of balance this fine line of not giving them too much of my time because typically their budgets are really small, but also with influencer marketing, so much of it is communication that I wanted to make sure that like I was never dropping the ball on communication. So eventually I was like, okay, I need to streamline this. Like I need to figure out something that works for everyone. So I launched basically a 3-month boot camp where it's like a three month partnership agreement, if you will. And then for after that 3 months, we can choose, hey, do you want to do this in-house now? You have all of the tools you need to succeed with influencer marketing. Or like I've seen with some other clients, if they've said, that's really nice. We don't want it back. Please stay with us. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. Both
Yeah.
options work for me.
Yeah.
So what I do is basically a 3 month for a couple hours a week. We have like a weekly chat, then I basically walk the startups through from start to successful campaigns going live. How does all of this work? We start from bare bones if they don't have anything already, build them a database of on-brand influencers, get their briefing and one pager ready, start helping them reach out to influencers, help them with all of the negotiations, building email templates that just make everything so much more streamlined. Like I think for me, this is the best thing I ever did when I was working with influencers is make sure that people feel like you are giving them personalized attention and you actually did look at their
Mhm.
profile and you do want to work with them. But at a certain point, influencer marketing is a numbers game. You need to be reaching out
Mhm.
to X amount of people per day if you want to do X
Mhm.
amount of campaigns per month. So just kind of
Mhm.
giving startups the tools to really like get this machine up and running. And I found that it takes about 3 months to really start from nothing to have campaigns going live. So I now do this like 3 month program with all of my startups.
Okay. And then they can either, like you said, take it in house or you do a done for you full service kind of
Exactly.
agency situation.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. Got it. And then so your copywriting business, does that like feed right into it when they're like, we don't have people for this? You do all the copy and
Yeah.
everything for
I
part of
have
this campaign.
I have to say, like, I didn't realize that I was doing this when I did this, but I have to say this is actually a very cool kind of offer to have is I have now seen a lot of the startups that I've helped with copy then go, "Hey, I saw you also do influencer marketing. We need that too." Like it's literally like, "Oh yeah, by the way." Like the number of like new potential client like discovery calls I've had where it ends with, "Oh, and influencer marketing." And I'm always like, "Yeah, sure."
Mhm.
But like that to me is a totally different thing. And to be fair, when I'm talking to most startups about copywriting, that means that their website is not in great shape. So I am
Mhm.
not going to start working with someone on influencer marketing if their website, their branding, their messaging is not looking fab. So normally it's like, let's start with copywriting. Once we feel like that looks amazing, we're super happy with it, then we can talk about influencer marketing. But yeah, I have found that, and this is actually why I'm really happy that, everyone always says, oh, pick one thing. You should only be good at one thing. I'm super happy with my twofold business right now. It's really working for me. I love what I do in both genres. And so I found that they actually really complement each other really nicely.
Yeah, that's interesting advice because I do find if you have like a core capability or skill or craft, so in your case that would be copywriting. You can't Yes, that should be your core thing, but when you work with clients, you're going to find they need services that you also can
Yeah.
do. Doing I market myself as a website designer because that's what people understand, but a lot of times they're like, I also need leads. I'm like, okay, that's the first step. Then what you need is like a digital marketing plan. And
Yeah.
it's like I can do that, but sometimes if the wording, the kind of clients I have, they're not going to understand that, and then you have to kind of educate in the process. And like you might be the perfect person to do that. I mean, me in my case, and you in your case. It's like,
Exactly.
well, and they already work with you, and you already know their business, and it doesn't make sense to some parts you have to farm out, but other parts you should kind of be doing. Maybe you can't do everything for sure,
Totally.
but I think 2 is very reasonable.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, it also came down to the fact of, it was like I really work with small companies and a lot of them are
Mhm.
female founders. And I would say I am now in a very lucky position that like I work with startups that like I believe in. I am rooting for these people.
Mhm.
Like I am
Yeah. Yeah.
cheering for them as much as I can, supporting them, definitely giving them hours that I'm not billing for, which is something I need to work on in the coming years. But it's like I'm rooting for these people on every level. And so then for me to just kind of say, like if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, an influencer marketing," and if I were to say, "Yeah, here's a platform that costs 600 euros a month, good luck," like to me,
Yeah.
I can do it. I know I can do it. I'm very experienced at it, and I know what I'm talking about. So why wouldn't I try and help this person and offer them an affordable solution that will allow them to actually start? Whereas so many other agencies that they would start talking to would say, "Hey, we'll work with you, but we need a minimum of 5K a month or something like that." And these startups can't afford
Right.
that.
Right. Right. I'm also, that's like such a good point. There is a sweet spot between, for these businesses, it's like they cannot afford these agency
Yeah.
fees, but they need people to, they just want to do their thing. They don't want to be
Yes.
marketers. They don't want to be marketers, but they have to.
And they
That's
need
the
help.
thing. They have to. And it's like you can't just like put out your thing and then customers come. Like marketing is all of it.
Oh my
So,
God, I had such an interesting chat with a founder the other day who had this mentality. Like, do you ever have these chats where you're like, I respect the effort you have put into building your business. You are very talented. We do not exist in the same universe. And I had this conversation with this woman who said, like, I trust that the right people will find me when they need to. And I was like, that's a very interesting approach.
mhm.
I do not subscribe to this approach. So I'm with you
um
100%.
yeah. No, I think what I find mostly is just my favorite kind of client are people that are like really accomplished in their field, but are just do not know anything about digital. Be like I had this one client. I also have clients in the States, and we set up her website, and she was amazed and whatever. And it was fine. Yes, of course I did a good job. But this woman was a Stanford trained pediatric oncologist. And I was like, because she's like, I could never do this. And I was like, well, maybe when you're done curing kids from cancer, you too can like make a website. Like
Yeah,
it's just,
but she needed you for this. This is
yeah,
what I think
no,
is so cool.
no.
And this is what I mean. Same with influencer marketing, same with copywriting, same with exactly what you do. It's like we have something to offer people who are very amazing at other things in the world.
Yeah.
And for like, this is how we can help them. Like that is literally how
Hmm.
I think of it. And this is to me the coolest part about becoming self-employed is I literally think of like when every time I'm sending an invoice, I kind of go through of like, oh yeah, how did I help this client this month? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like we're literally helping people. They're not paying us for nothing. Like there is a very clear deliverable of something their business needed before they met you, me, whoever else, you know? And to me, this is what I find the most gratifying about working with startups, or for instance, like you working with, founders who need
Hmm.
better, fabulous websites is
Hmm.
like they need us, they care, it's mainly just them. And so it's
Yeah.
very easy to see the deliverable, like, and the difference between before and after, you know what I mean? It is way different than any experience I've had working with like bigger corporations. Like I now see
Right.
that these are not my ideal clients because you never get to see the product of you never get to see the outcome, you never get to see, we got from point A to point B because everything takes too long. Like it's the coolest thing for me to see that. Like how amazing is that call you have with that woman who is like super accomplished? She thinks you're the bee's knees because you built her a new
Yeah.
website. Like to me, that's the coolest feeling.
Yeah, that's true, especially working in a corporate agency for years. You just like it's years if you ever even see any result of your
And
work.
how
But
frustrating is that?
yeah, horrible, horrible. I hated it. I want to get back to something you said about being self-employed and Germany. So you mentioned a fiance. So you came here
Yes.
like how'd you do all your visa stuff? How did you because yeah, tell me.
I a billion percent do not recommend following any of my advice when it comes to visa procedures.
Okay.
I
Okay.
basically moved to Portugal, became self employed in Portugal, and then thought, oh, I think I can go to Germany and do this too. But then I got to Germany and I was like, wait a minute, I need health insurance. I need like to be paying into Social Security. I was woefully unprepared to be self employed. So that's when I said, okay, wait a minute, I need a full time job. So then I actually moved to Germany like temporarily, got a, oh gosh, what's it called? Oh my God, what do you call it when you have roommates?
Wohngemeinschaft, WG.
Yeah, genau, did that. got a room in a shared apartment, and then was like, oh, wait a minute, I need a full-time job. Then luckily I was already working in influencer marketing, and influencer marketing was super in demand at the time. So I got lucky. I got a full-time job with a German company. They sponsored my visa. Everything was fine. So
Okay.
I worked in Germany for a couple of years then, being full-time employed with my visa always attached to my full-time job. And then it wasn't until just last year when I became self-employed, and then I had to switch my visa entirely, which was truly an awful process. And I have no fond memories of whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you could do that after 2 years.
What do you mean?
Go freelance. Because I feel like I can't. It's a long time ago now, but I felt like when I was first here, you had to like work, like be employed. I want to say 5 years, but you couldn't just go freelance. I could be wrong about this, but I just remember everything was going to be like 5 years and it was going to be. I had wanted to go freelance a lot earlier than I could, but I couldn't do it.
Oh.
But
I
I
think the
again,
system has
this is a long
changed.
time ago.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty confident it's now changed. And I think there wasn't necessarily this like years limit, but what there are,
Mhm.
there's plenty of other hoops you have to jump through. And one of
Yeah.
them basically being you need to prove that German clients need you here. Like you basically have to
Right.
prove that you are
Right.
working with German clients and you're not, Emily from America here working for all these American clients who just wants to hang out in
Mhm.
Hamburg. Like you have to prove that you have
Which is
basically
like 100% true, but
yeah,
at least in my case, yeah.
but like now you have to prove that you have German clients, and yeah, I
Okay.
think that was basically the big caveat that I had to deal with. But like
Mhm.
in terms of timing, for me, it was all fine.
Okay. And how did you but you still were in Portugal. Like, were you just doing this all on your tourist visa or like how were you
Oh no,
hanging
no,
out
no.
in Europe?
What do you mean? No, so sorry. I was in Portugal, and then I moved to Germany, and
Oh,
then I
right.
had full-time jobs in Germany and was doing my whole full-time employment,
Okay.
all that, all that jazz. I only became self-employed after like 2.5 years of living in Germany.
Okay. And in Portugal, you were freelancing, you said.
Yeah,
Or did I
Portugal's
sum
visa
it up?
system is totally different, which is actually why I moved there in the first place. It's way easier. Still lots of
Okay.
bureaucracy and still a lot of confusion and a lot of unnecessary paperwork. But they had a situation, at least when I lived there, and like I said, I am not a legal expert and never care to be. But basically, I could get a visa that said, listen, I have a job, I can support myself. Please let me live in Portugal. It was like, which Germany doesn't really have something like that. So it
Yeah.
was basically
Yeah.
like a totally different visa setup.
Okay. But you got to get a toehold in the EU and then you can try your
Exactly.
luck in
That was
another
my
country.
strategy because I didn't know what else to do.
Okay. 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 Got it. Okay. So why don't you talk? I mean, we touched on your marketing copywriting, but do you want to talk, or do you do that strictly not in conjunction with influencer marketing? Do like
Oh,
companies
you
come
mean
to
in
you
terms of
and you
like
do,
separating clients or what do you mean?
yeah. Yeah. Or is it always, so when you do your copywriting, does it always kind of lead into the influencer marketing or do you do that standalone for other
I do it
clients?
standalone. So I actually
Okay.
started thinking it's been a weird evolution of my business. When I first started, I
Mhm.
thought a lot of people were going to want influencer marketing, but I also hadn't streamlined my offer yet. So this is like also my own learning of
Mhm.
like how I did not do this accurately or intelligently. And so I thought a lot of companies were going to need influencer marketing when I first started my business. Then I suddenly found that I was getting tons of copywriting work. So I kind of put influencer marketing on the back burner. But then everything kind of comes and goes in waves. And then influencer marketing became super top of mind for a lot of businesses again. And I started to see a lot of interest with influencer marketing, which led me to then make this course and start refining my offer. So right now it's about 50-50 split, but like standalone. So my clients for copywriting are
Okay.
totally different than my clients for influencer marketing. And I actually quite like that. Like I think for me, it's a really nice mix. But most of my copywriting clients are standalone copywriting clients. And if anything, turn into influencer marketing clients, maybe like one out of every 10, but it's not super common.
And what are your typical clients for your copywriting?
For copywriting, I
Mhm.
am lucky enough that I have two bigger clients. Like I work
Mhm.
for a big period tracking app doing their marketing
Mhm.
communications, which I have to say I love. Like I absolutely love it. It's
Mhm.
totally my jam. It's really progressive and empowering. And for me as a writer, I have to say like I love this client because for me it's also like I don't want to say challenging in a negative way, in the best way
Mhm.
possible of going, oh, wait a minute, how can we be gender inclusive? How can we make sure that, somebody who has been struggling for years to get pregnant seems enthusiastic about this email, compared to somebody who's trying to get pregnant for the first time? Things like this. For me,
Mhm.
it's really been an amazing journey as a writer to have them as a client. Like I have learned so, so
Mhm.
much. I have another bigger client that's like a restaurant booking app, which is just a lot of fun. Like I love food. I would say
Mhm.
I'm a foodie. Writing about food and drinks all day long is super fun. That being said, I also have then some other smaller clients who are more of like, I would say my wheelhouse, like female founder clients. And for them, then this is also something I'm looking at, like kind of streamlining my offer for them going forward to create, a sort of ongoing retainer where I can support them constantly with marketing copywriting, and we can slowly tick off everything on their list without them having to put in like thousands of euros up front. But for the most part,
Okay.
then I help a lot of founders with their website copy. Marketing emails are like my jam. I love marketing emails. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
actually
Okay.
something I'm actually launching. I was supposed to launch it this month, but then I got too many
Uh-huh.
clients. So then I had to say, okay, I launched this in July, which is actually something
Mhm.
I'm not super happy with the way that went with my business, but them's the break, so I can't do anything.
Yeah.
But my offer going forward will actually pertain specifically to marketing emails because I mean, you and I know, and I think it is very easy to
Mhm.
find any statistic on the internet that like the power of marketing is in your email list. Like you have people who
Yeah.
are already there and told you that they're interested in you. Like, why would you not email these people? And so many founders have so many other things on their to do list that they're like,
Yeah.
oh, next month I'll send an email. And like, when does that email get sent? So I personally have a very, very strong passion for marketing emails. I love them. I could write them all day long. And so that is where I feel like I get the most excited for my new clients is writing marketing emails.
That's a good offer because a lot of my clients, it is always like, okay, and then we got to put an opt in for your email. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Do you have a nurture sequence? How long are you going to do this? What are you going to talk about? And then understandably, they're like, I'm like, and I tell them, if you are not going to, you can't just have people sign up and they don't hear from you. That's bad. So if you're
Not
going to
even a
do this, you
welcome
got to,
email.
even if it's a quarterly, like you got to commit to something. And if you're not ready to do that, then we do not put the opt in, which I
Good
always
for
think
you.
you should, but you got to understand what
Yeah, but
you're doing
Eleanor,
here.
really good for you because this is actually the same question I ask. And this is why, going back to what you were saying before, like, do my offers kind of like ping pong off each other? Is with influencer marketing, I will never take on a client until their emails are like, okay. Because this is, I see
Mhm.
the same thing. It's like if we do work for influencer marketing together and you get people to your site, like that is my mission is to get more people to your site, to your Instagram, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What are they signing up for? Like when they are there, like
Yeah.
what are you doing to make sure that you capitalize on the fact that these new visitors are on your site? Like, are we offering them 10% off when they sign up for, an email, whatever? If you don't have these basic systems in place, you are not setting me up for success, let alone yourself. Like, so
Mhm.
why would we work
Yeah.
together? This is going to be a waste of money. Like,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
super strongly about email marketing and email lists. And I think it's just wild to me. Like for one of my clients is like a big coffee company actually. And we sent an email last week. They had restocked this one product, was super exciting. It sold out in 3 hours because of an email. No one would have
Yeah.
bought this product because they didn't even know it existed if we wouldn't have sent an email. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not send an email?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Sorry.
not for
My
every
rant about
business.
emails
No,
is
it's true.
over.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm getting like when it comes to digital marketing services, I sort of really have to look at the person and the person's business and understand what they can do, what they're willing to do, what they're able to do. And if they have the budget, then like say you should outsource this because, I'm working for a magician now. It's like they're not going to do the, or they're not marketers. It's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about marketing and sending email. Oh yeah, brand. So when people come to these startups, do they I mean, when you're writing, when you're doing design, anything, sometimes people have done a lot of branding work and sometimes they haven't. And they may not be in a position to go back and do this whole huge brand analysis. So you kind of have to work with what you have and infuse it.
Yeah.
What is typically the situation when are you kind of also simultaneously working on their brand, or do they say like we had all this branding work and this is us and this is our values and this is, all that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, the biggest question that I need to know is what's your audience? Like, if they haven't defined
Mhm.
who their audience is, then I have a problem, and then I would say,
Mhm.
listen, like, before I can really do good work for you, we need to define your audience because I don't know,
Yeah.
anyone listening to this podcast probably knows it's like the worst answer ever is when you say, okay, who's your ideal customer? Who's your audience? And they go, well, everyone can use it. And you're like,
Everybody.
it's the same as when I ask for a due date for something and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, well,
Yeah.
yesterday." Like literally the two
Yeah.
answers I hate most of all in the entire world. So I think for me it's really just audience. As soon as I know what the audience is, for me it's okay. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
from there, I would say I am super dynamic and flexible with what I can do. The most important thing that I need, which I would say is actually the biggest struggle with my clients, is a really good brief. I need to know from
Mhm.
them what I'm working on. I need to know what is our goal of each piece of text on the page. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where is
Mhm.
the CTA going? Where is that CTA leading?
Mhm.
Like, what
Mhm.
happens when they're on this next landing page that they go to or the checkout or whatever. For me, that's the
Mhm.
most important thing. I think once Personally, I also think this is because of my background as a performer. I think it's really helped me a lot with this component of copywriting is as soon as I know the audience and I know what the product is, my immediate next step is, okay, what feelings does this person have when they see this product? What problems is
Mhm.
this solving? What
Mhm.
pain points is this relieving in their life? And what does
Yeah.
that feel like? And as soon as
Yeah.
I know what that is, as soon as I know how, let's say, your life is getting better because you're putting this product in your cart and it's getting delivered to your house, and suddenly this pain point in your life is gone.
Mhm.
From there, then I'm normally fine. If that seems muddy, if the offer is not clear, if we have
Right.
not defined what part of your life is getting better from this product, yeah, then I've got a lot of work to do. But for the most part, I would say most of the clients that I'm working with, also because, I'm not working for free, they've gotten to a point
Mhm.
and they've invested enough in their business that they know who their ideal customer is. They know
Right.
what problem they're solving. The biggest problem I see, and this is where I would say I'm the most valuable as a copywriter, is most of the time people are just too close to their product. Like I started
Yeah.
onboarding with a new client last week and I'm really diving in with them this week. Their product is actually really simple, but on their website, I was so confused. Everything was super
Okay.
deep and sciency and this and that, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you solve this one problem in people's life. Why is that not your claim on the website?" Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? People who are too close to the product, they think, "Oh, we have to talk about this research paper and we have to talk about this and we need to
Right.
talk about that." And it's like, "No, you don't. You just have to talk to people as humans and tell them how you're going to make their life better." That's the easiest thing you can do.
Yeah. They get lost in the features, not the
Exactly.
benefits.
Oh my god, so many features.
I could talk shop with you all day long, but I wanna start wrapping it up, and so I wanna ask you some of the questions that I like to close with, and that
Yeah.
is, what do you wish you had known before you had gotten started with your business?
I wish I would have known that I could do it and I could be really successful. Because I think really truly the scariest thing about launching a business, if you are a hardworking person who wants to be successful, is the fear of failure. For me, that was the
Mhm.
largest fear when I started. I was really, really scared of failing. And so to be where I am now, knowing that yes, of course, at any moment it could all disappear, I feel very successful. And I think if I could go back almost a year and a half ago and tell myself
Mhm.
like, hey, what if like I could tell you like you're going to be successful, focus on everything else. Just stop worrying
Mhm.
about failing. I think I would have saved myself a lot of anxiety.
But you did it. You pushed through it and you did it. It's not like you
Of
didn't get
course. No,
started
but
because
I
you were
mean like
scared,
for
yeah.
me it's it's just a very scary thing and I think also, I mean, I don't know how it was when you first became self-employed. My friend group is not bursting with, business owners and entrepreneurs. So for me it was nobody knew what I was doing. Nobody knew how to really offer me
Yeah.
very constructive advice. And so it was kind of like, "Oh, how's that business of yours going?" Instead, like
Mhm.
so I really felt quite alone, with a very supportive network of friends and family, but like nobody who could really like kind of steer me in the right direction. So I kind of felt like I was just doing this in the dark. So that's all I mean is I think I'm very proud of what I've
Yeah.
accomplished. But I mean, if I could go back, I just wish I could tell myself like, "Hey, stop worrying about the fact that things won't work out. Don't take jobs that are not worth your time. Like focus on the prize. Like you got this."
Yeah. Yeah. But to that point, you are pretty involved in Bisonettes, right? Are you're involved in a lot of groups and you go to
I have
WeWork. So do you
I
have
have
a
a very
community of business owners?
Yeah, so like I have a very strong passion for like networking. This is something that I do think
Mhm.
in general Germany could do a billion times better is I I know myself, and I know I'm also like obsessed with like communicating with people and cheering people on, and also feeling like I have people supporting me as well. And so this is the first thing I did when I realized I wanted to become freelance, was I just started to see who I could connect with and who could
Mhm.
inspire me, who I could be inspired by, where can I go when I need questions answered, or I just feel like I'm having a shit day running my business. Like, where can I go
Mhm.
to talk to people who are in a similar situation? So those places for me were the Bisonettes for sure. It's a bit German,
Mhm.
so I actually went to them and was like, "Hey, can we do an English version of this?" And they were super keen, which has been amazing. So the Bisonettes, and then I also recently joined a US focused group as well because I miss like American enthusiasm. And so I've joined a business group for female
I
entrepreneurs
know.
in the US as well, and I have to say it
Mhm.
is like filling my cup with all of the American support, enthusiasm. You got this, girl. That like I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
honestly, truly just does not exist in Germany.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I kinda started my own, but it's face to face. I
Ah,
was in a
cool.
lot of those groups but I hear what you're saying. For me in the last couple, or not last couple, last year, I just have been very like, I need to bring everything back here and not keep looking over. It's hard. It's hard not to look over it because America is just it's just a really dynamic place,
Yeah.
and see everything going on there, and I was like, "Okay, you just gotta bloom where you're planted and build your thing
Yep.
here."
Yep.
So, but I totally get what you're saying. And, okay, so the last question that would be, like, what advice would you give to anybody who's thinking about starting or running a business here in Germany that is not German?
I would say, I think maybe I'm scared I'm going to ramble, but I think for me, there's a few important things. One is to totally know your why. Like, I think as soon as you know your why, you know the kind of people that you're going to help. Like, going back to the conversation that we were just having about how, like, I genuinely feel like I am helping people with the work I am doing for them. It makes it way
Mhm,
easier to justify your rates, your offer, your
mhm.
contracts, anything like that, if you know your why, because you know what you're good at. So I think for me, those two kind of go hand in hand. And the other, I would say, this was really, oh my God, life-changing book I read this year was We Should All Be Millionaires from Rachel Rogers. And she has an incredibly powerful chapter in this book about auditing the people that you spend your time with. This sounds really negative, but I mean it in like the most positive way ever. I realized that there were people in Hamburg, in the business community, whatever, that were not adding positive, wonderful things to my life. But I just thought,
Yeah.
oh, well, like I'm a business owner now. I have to be friends with everyone. Everyone has to know that I have my
Mhm.
business, and here I am and I care and I'm successful. I was driving myself crazy trying to be liked by everyone. And eventually I realized, no, like I would much rather have a core group of people talking about this concept of support and community and inspiration. And I would say now it's like I've clutched on to a key five people who I really look to. We have monthly financial chats, we have chats about our pricing for people, we send clients each other's way. Like, I have really honed down the number of people I share my business with, because it is something that's deeply personal to me. And I found that as a result, like the quality of the support and advice and referrals and clients that I'm getting has like increased tenfold. So for me, I would say those would be like the two main things I would say, is really
Two
know your
things.
why and also be very careful about the people that you surround yourself with.
It's so funny. Jen Retzloff, who I think was episode 3, she's got a very successful recruiting agency. They're actually moving back to Canada, but she used this term. She said, OQP, only quality people. I was like, "Oh, that's good. You down with OQP?" Yes, and so I hear that a lot, and from a lot
But
of
it's
people,
so
so
true,
yeah. Yeah.
because I'm also
Yeah.
convinced that
Because
I think once
Go
people
ahead.
start seeing, so for instance, like now I've gotten to the point where like it's been a struggle for a couple of months when I first started. Don't get me wrong. Like, I never want this to sound like this
Mhm.
glamorous success story. I am
Mhm.
very happy with the place that my business is in now, and I'm hiring people, and everything is going gangbusters. Now everybody wants to chat. Now everyone wants to be friends. Now
Yeah.
everyone wants to have lunch. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait a
Mhm.
minute. Like, who was here from the beginning? Who was really like, yes, people come and go, and you can always find new friends. You can always find, new connections and people to inspire you. But I just, OQP is amazing. I want to take that
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
my life as well. I think it's
we'll
true.
popularize it. Yeah. Oh, I just realized, okay, just a couple minutes on hiring people in Germany.
Okay.
What is that? Are you like hiring full-time
No.
employees or contractors? Okay, then
we don't need.
We don't need to talk about it too much. The
that's
only thing I would say is I am very avoidant of the mini job. I do not enjoy the mini job system, and I have very strong opinions on it.
I could imagine that it sounds good, but there's probably a lot of paperwork.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all.
But contracting people is no problem. Yeah.
Super easy. Yeah.
Well, Emily, tell us where people can find you.
Yeah. So next month, I am launching my new website, which is emilyclaireand.co. And then also on LinkedIn, I'm just Emily Claire Hughes. And on Instagram, I am Emily in Hamburg. I'd be super thrilled if anyone would follow me there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great talking to you. And I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again soon.
Thank you, Eleanor. I so enjoyed this.
Thanks for listening. You can find this episode and all other episodes of the Germany Expat Business Show at my website at www.eleanormeyerhofer.com/podcast. That's www.eleanormayerhofer.com/podcast. See you next time.